mind as well. But yeah, good morning, Will, and I can see you in the chat as well. So I know we're all very much used to these formats at the moment, aren't we? So welcome and good morning again. If you've not come across myself at Make UK, I am the regional manager for the Midlands and East of England. We were keen to put on this session regarding grant funding and the access of particular streams, which we'll go into details about with our guests, and I'll introduce them in just a moment. But of course, what we see through the Levelling Up agenda, the rollout of Made Smarter, both in the West Midlands and the North, net zero ambitions, and of course, more recently, the budget. There's clearly a need for the sector to further engage with funding streams if you haven't already, but also it's a good opportunity to kind of help those maybe early movers in this world and those with a bit more experience as well. And we'll kind of run through those sort of things in this session. But please do ask any questions you have as we move along in the chat function. As I say, the session will be recorded if you do need to drop off or get called away for any particular reason. And we can always pick things up towards the end as well. So our first sort of guest speaker and partner on grant funding is from Richard Fallon, who is the Chief Executive of the Technology Supply Chain, who are a partner organisation for Make UK. And very much this is their day-to-day, or your day-to-day, Richard, regarding helping businesses access grant funding, particularly in the West Midlands, but the principles certainly do apply nationally. If you wanted to share your screen, and I know you're going to take us through some of the myths, types of grant funding available, and how you go about accessing.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Chris. Good morning, everybody. Can everybody see my screen? If you can, please type yes in the chat box. Yes. So everybody's got a normal view of my screen, not the presenter view. Perfect, perfect. Good morning, everybody. This is definitely the best way to listen to a talk from me, as you can control the volume at your end. I'm Richard Fallon. I'm going to be talking you through the little known grants, funding and free support available. Chris will be sending you out slides, so there's details on them, so you can take them away at the end. But thank you very, very much for joining us this morning. It's great to see everybody. So is this the right room for you? Yes, if you want to decrease costs, increase productivity, create new products or services, or develop new internal processes, this is definitely the right room for you. If it's not, you might want to check your email for the next half an hour while I'm speaking. So did you know there are hundreds of millions of pounds available to UK firms in the manufacturing, engineering and technology sectors? There is lots and lots of funding out there. The thing is, most people don't know about it. That is, most people I speak to, it's where I find somebody who knows where these grants and this funding support is hidden. So please allow me to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Richard Fallon, the CEO of the Technology Supply Chain. Whenever you see me, you usually see me in a three-piece suit, or you see me like that with a loud shirt and jeans on. My background is a little bit unusual, because although I've been helping companies with grants and marketing for years, my PhD is initially from Aston University in electronic engineering. And while I was doing my PhD, I got to work with a small manufacturer who made masts down in Southampton, a shipyard in Cornwall, and got to work with British Aerospace as well, because I worked out how to do a sensor system into the masts of yachts. And they eventually went on to tornadoes. And my work appeared on Tomorrow's World, for those who remember that from back in the day. So I really enjoyed my PhD, but after 3 years in an underground lab working on my own, started to think socks and sandals sounds like a comfortable option. Maybe I need to get out a bit more often. I also like people and I like sunshine. So I left then and went to work for British Airways as a business analyst. And I sat between the business and the IT department who did process mapping. And 2004, I set up my own business, doing training and doing marketing. And a couple of years ago, my old PhD group had a reunion and they said, you know, we've got funding for small and medium-sized companies, but we need a hand engaging with them. Can you help? And I said, certainly we can. So we started working with them. That went really well. And then we found out there was lots of these funds out there, lots of these funds. And this is really what I want to tell you about today is there's lots of support, lots of grants, and loads of new opportunities out there. And that's what I'm going to tell you a little bit about in this talk. Why am I sharing all this? Well, the money's there to help companies, but they don't know it's there. And it's like, by using it, it will help your business do better. It will help you employ more people, make more money, bring prosperity to the region in the UK. And that's really, really what I'm all about, is helping companies so they can grow. and I want to give you what I can today. I can't, there's lots of stuff I can't cover, but I'll tell you how to contact me, and I'll tell you how we work. But I'm going to give you a whistle-stop overview of what I can. As Chris said, although we're focused on the West Midlands, we do cover the rest of the UK. Some of the examples I give are for West Midlands, and there's different things for different parts of the UK. But let's get into this. Let's go for it. So what are you going to discover? We're going to discover the myths behind grants. What are the big myths that I hear often? I'm going to talk about the 3 different flavors of grants. I'm not talking about the COVID grants. They're like a separate thing. I'm talking about those grants for business growth rather than those COVID grants. I can direct you to people who can help you with that, as I'm sure Chris has done at Make UK. And then I'm going to talk about fully funded support. There is a lot of that available. And if you know it's there, it can really help you move forward. And then I'm going to tell you how to put it all together, because if you put it together right, you can really reduce your costs of growing your business, bringing in new processes, making things more efficient. You can really reduce the cost of that. I'm going to show you how to put it all together at the end. So what are the myths and the facts behind grants? So the biggest one I often come across is people seem to think that the grant's for nothing, that there isn't any money for anything. Or at the other end of the spectrum, we've got the people who think grants are literally for everything. So what happens is sometimes people find some useful grants for a couple of things, and then they get a bit frustrated when they find there's certain things they want to do and there aren't grants for them. So the truth is, as always, somewhere in between. There are grants for some things, but there are not grants for everything. The second one I come across is the grants versus funding confusion. This is basically, I've had a lot of people, especially who are looking to start up businesses in the PPE sector, wanting to develop PPE, would say to me, I've read a newspaper article where this company has got £21 million in funding to set up a PPE manufacturing plant. That's amazing. Can you help me get those grants? Can you help me get 22 million in grants? And you have to explain, if they read the article, they'd realize that part of it was grants, probably like 500 grand might have been grants. The rest was a loan from the bank, because funding can be grants, can be debt, or it can be equity. The funding can be different things. So it's good to understand the difference, because otherwise you just kind of think there's millions of pounds worth of grants. There are millions of pounds worth of grants, but it's unlikely one business would get all of that. So it's just sometimes you've got to listen for the difference between grants and funding. So many businesses I meet, when they're looking for grants, first of all, they think we're too new. There are lots of grants and fully funded support for new business. There tends to be more after you've been going for 6 months, but there are some things if you're new. A lot of people say to me, but I'm too small. I'm like a one-man band, or we're a family business. There's 2 or 3 of it. No, there are definitely grants for you. And then a lot think I'm too big for a grant. I've had a lot of companies say to me, I've got 100 staff. We're turning over £10 million. Surely we're too big for a grant. No, that isn't the case. There are actually grants for everybody. Even big corporates can get grants. But most of the grants that are available are for companies with under 249 employees and less than 40 million. And that's what they call an SME, a small to medium-sized enterprise, as the EU defines it. So that's the figure. So it's just less than that. So even if you're one-man band turning over nothing, you can still access these things, and you can up to 249 employees and £40 million turnover. So let's start off with what grants don't cover. What do grants not cover? They don't tend to cover startup costs. So you start off getting going, they don't tend to cover that. There are a couple of exceptions. There's 1.5 exceptions that I'm going to share with you where there is some money for that, but they don't tend to cover startup businesses. They don't cover maintenance. I've had phone calls off people saying, is it possible for me to get a grant to fix the leak in my roof? Can I get a green energy grant? And you go, it's a nice try to get that, but green energy grants for doing something above and beyond. They're not there just for basic maintenance. So you're not going to get a grant for that. They're not there for general business expenses, like often attending conferences. To exhibit a conference, you could probably get a grant, but not just to attend. And there's things like day-to-day running costs. You're not going to find them, for example, for cleaning and things like that. There are grants for some types of marketing, but not others. So you wouldn't get a grant, for example, for pay-per-click marketing, things like that. But you could get grants for developing marketing strategy, doing market research, putting something together, like your logo, doing some stationery, you can get grants for that, just not the pay-per-click, things like that. You can't get them for the usual professional fees. So you can't get grants to pay your accountant or your solicitor is pretty much the usual thing, because that's considered part of the cost of doing business. Equally, you don't get grants to cover insurance. And you don't get grants usually to cover your pay or your staff wages. There is one big exception, the Innovate Grants, and I'll talk about that later, but generally most of them aren't there to cover that. So what do they cover? So what can you use a grant for? Well, there are grants for new development, new product and service development, including digital. That is big. There are lots of grants. If you're looking to develop a new product or service, there's usually a grant for that. It doesn't have to be new in the world. That just has to be new to your business. There are grants for market development, working out how are you going to develop your market, what marketplace should you be in, who should you be speaking to. There are grants for that. There's also grants for capital expenditure, which a lot of manufacturers find really great because you can get money for equipment, machinery, things you want to put in. There are grants to help you to do that. There are grants even for office relocation, refurbishment. So if you want to put new desks in, if you want to upgrade the office, if you want to expand, if you want to buy new premises or you want to put an extension, there are grants to help you to do that. There are definitely grants for quality improvement. So if you want to do ISO accreditation, things like that, you can get grants for that. Also process improvement. How do you make things faster? A lot of the grants and fully funded support is about how do you improve internal processes. And there's a lot of help for doing that. There's definitely grants for coaching and consulting. If you want to get a business coach to help you out, or you need a bit of consulting on an area, then you can get a grant for that. And there's usually grants for training as well. So you can get grants to help you move your business forward, maybe some marketing training, maybe some things in finance, access to finance. There are grants and funding to cover all of that type of stuff. So there's lots of things you can cover. Now, the thing is there are grant limits. And I love the way people like to simplify things by using Latin, because I find that the best way to simplify something is to use some Latin expressions. So the one here is de minimis. And de minimis basically means too small to be relevant. It basically means small, insignificant things. So what this means is you can have up to £200,000, 200,000 euros, which is about £180,000 in grant funding under de minimis terms, and that's over 3 years. So after you've had it, say you took a grant out today 3 years ago, tomorrow it would disappear. So whatever the grant was for, you would get back as being able to spend now. So a lot of people say to me, I've already had, I've had like 180 grand's worth of grant, but you find out it's 5 years ago, they've got another 180 grand to spend now. Please be aware that the EU funded stuff is still going on. A lot of that will go on to the end of 2022. So that money is still available and it still follows de minimis, but get it while you can, because we're still waiting to see what happens with the UK deciding what they're going to do to fill that gap, as it were. However, you should know there's a thing called general block exemption regulations. And basically that means certain things like grants for R&D are exempt. So you can get more than that 180K. And I'm going to touch on that with one of these grants. You can kind of see how that works. So what I want to do here is give you some examples of grants you can get, but give you an idea of how they work. So when you look for other ones, you kind of go, get that. I see how that plays out. So let's have a look at the 3 different flavors of grants and how to access them. So the first one is innovation grants, and they are typically £3 and they usually go up to about £12,000. Now, I'm going to go into these a bit more detail, but I'm going to pick up this word innovation because it's used twice on the same slide, but in a different way. So innovation grants are there for you doing something new within your business. Doesn't have to be new in the world. So if you decided you wanted to sell stuff online, have e-commerce, if you wanted to sell your products direct to the customer through your website and you hadn't done that before, you could get an innovation grant for that. Lots of companies doing that, but because it's new for you, you can get an innovation grant. Equally, if you're putting in a content management, if you're putting in a customer relationship management system, all of these things, anything new to your business, you can probably get an innovation grant for. So I've even seen this for websites. If you're doing something new with your website, you can get an innovation grant to help you cover that. The next one is what I call job creation grants. These tend to be larger, But as the name implies, you need to create jobs. And the final one is the big one. That's Innovate UK Grants. Now, these are about innovation, but innovation where you're doing something brand new and bringing something new to the marketplace. So these terms often get confused. So the innovation, the first one, is new to your business. The innovate in number 3 is new to the world, doing something new. So how do innovation grants work? So these are offered usually by universities, councils. You can get others like the Manufacturing Technology Centre get involved in these. These innovation grants are for external spend only. So they're about paying somebody else who's helping you to do your innovation. So say, for example, you're doing your e-commerce, that would be your website designer, whoever's developing that for you. They are typically match funded, so against a specific project, and it's usually about 50%, usually around the 50% mark. Can be a bit higher, can be a bit lower. And they differ by local enterprise partnership. Now I'm going to go into this because this is really important. What happens is the government gives money to local enterprise partnerships who then decide how the money is going to be spent in your region. So each region has different grants, different support programs. So I've given you that picture there. That's the 38 UK LEPs. It's really useful to know which LEP you are in to find out what is offered by that LEP. So you need to know your postcode. You need to know what LEP you fall under. I'm going to ask Chris is going to share these slides. She'll get that picture. She'll be able to find out which LEP you fall under. The only one you might have problems with is G first is Gloucester, if you're wondering. And the marches, I'm going to talk about later, is Shropshire and Herefordshire, because you won't find that on any map called the marches, but that's where that is. So let's have a look at, I'm going to give you some examples of these grants. So there's a really nice one, which is really, really popular with a lot of our members, and that's Innovation Networks. And that gives you 44% match funding on projects between £5,000 and £22,000. And they can be used for materials, prototypes, marketing, developing an app. They can be used for testing. And what I really like about that grant is it covers, if you're in Coventry and Warwickshire, if you're in the Black Country, or if you're in the Greater Birmingham Solihull LEP. That is a really good grant. I've had a lot of people kind of go through that. It's a little bit more complex to apply for than I've actually said there, but the team help you out. You don't need somebody to help you with that. We'll happily talk you through that. If you want to find out more information, please get in contact. Really good grant. Another one I want to mention while I'm here is the Smart Concept Fund, and that can be used for product development, prototyping, testing, IP protection, and market research. And you can get a grant up to £16,500. So that's even above the 12 grand I mentioned. And you get that at a rate of 55%. And that's if you're based in the Black Country, Shropshire, Herefordshire, or Stoke-on-Staffs. That's available to you. So the thing is, there's lots of people I talk to who said, I've just done that. Can I get that grant? Unfortunately, you can't. You actually have to have applied for the grant and have it approved before you start work. So you can't have started the project. You can't have taken somebody on, because with all these grants, you need to give 3 quotes. So if you've already done some work, you can't claim that back, but it is useful for the next time you do something, knowing it is there. So this is the pitfall, is people often look for after the fact. It's worth knowing what's there before you kind of get moving on the work. Okay, next type is job creation grants. These are, I'm going to give you an example here of the business growth program. There's similar ones around the UK. The first one, this version, is GBS LEP, which stands for Greater Birmingham Solihull LEP. Weirdly enough, that kind of goes down to Bromsgrove and as far up as Lichfield and even into Cannock, and it actually covers Burton-on-Trent as well. So that's actually quite a big LEP. It does cover a big area. So what they do is, with them, you can get a match funded grant from 10 grand up to £1 million. That's the highest you can get. And the matches spend up to de minimis. So what do I mean by that? Is you can get 50%, up to 50%. If you're doing that 320 grand, get 180 grand back. That's the maximum you can get. If you want to claim that higher amount, get more to £1 million, you can only get 30% spent. And what you've got to do is you must create a new job for every 10 grand you spend within 6 months. This is the biggest thing, by the way. This is the biggest barrier. Is the best way to look at it is how many jobs do I think I can create within the next 6 months? And that will give you an idea of the amount you should apply for. And your business must be 6 months old to get that grant. So in the marches is the same as the GBS LEP. So this is Herefordshire and Shropshire and Herefordshire. You get the same deal as the GBS LEP, but two different things. One is it includes grants of £2,000 to £500, up to 10 grand for business to business startups, which is worth knowing if you're a startup. But it also gives you a bit more money as well, as we should see. It gives you 60% of your spend. Again, you must create a job for every 10 grand you receive, but it gives you 60% of your expenditure. So I mentioned this de minimis. I've said how it works. For the Greater Birmingham Solihull LEP, you get 50% match funded. If you're in the marches, you can get 60% match funded if it is under that £180,000. So whatever you're spending, as long as the grants you receive less than 180 grand, you get that. If you want bigger, then I've given you the general block exemption regulations. So that gives you the area you're in, and the size of your business depends on the percentage they're going to give you. So this is where it gets a little bit more complex. Most people, for most companies, they're good under de minimis. That's fine, but it's worth knowing that if you've got a piece of equipment you want to buy that's like £1 million and you want to buy machinery and kit and area out, then you can get funding under that. But you probably only get 30% if you're in an assisted area for your small business, but it's worth knowing it's there. So what's eligible for those grants? Capital expenditure, so buying equipment, improving systems and processes, market development, business information modeling, new product development, and relocation and expansion. So it doesn't have to just be for one thing, by the way. So what you could do is work out how many jobs you think with support you can create in 6 months. Then that'll give you an idea. So say you think I can do 5. So that means if you're in the Greater Birmingham Solihull LEP, you spend 100 grand, you get 50 grand back. So with that 100 grand, you can spread it across. You can buy new equipment, do some market development, use some of it to do up your premises, however you want to do it. The thing is, with those schemes, you can only apply once. So you only get one bite of the cherry. So it's worth having a look when you think, I'm going to be able to take new people on. It's worth having a look at that then. Some people say to me, I'm buying machinery, so I need less people. The thing is, in that case, you need to look at how you could bring in other people, whether that's sales and marketing, whether that's more admin staff. So how are you going to grow the business? Because they all require you to create those jobs. Okay, so moving on, we've got Innovate UK Grants. These are grants that can go from as little as £10,000 up to £5 million for eligible costs. They can get really big. Most of the bids aren't that big. They're usually around a couple of £100,000 level, but they can get really big. And they offer to cover costs from 25% up to 70% of your eligible costs. The difference is if you're a small business, less than 49 employees, and you're doing something new, feasibility study-wise, you get 70%. If you're doing something that's close to market, you'll get 45%. If you're a much bigger business doing something close to market, you only get 25%. So it's worth reading what you can get. And there is a thing called Sbri Grants. That stands for the Small Business Research Initiative Grants. And what they do is they give you 100% of your costs. That is basically the government puts out a grant to say, we've got a problem. We want your help in solving it. Put in a bid. You know, we're going to make a grant available for this amount. They work a little bit differently to the others because they tell you what they want and you say, I can supply you this for this amount, and you bid in for that. Definitely worth knowing that there. For most of the grants, though, they are highly competitive. I think the SMART grant, which I'll touch on, gets about 7% of people applying for it are accepted. That doesn't mean it's a lot more difficult. That just means there's a lot of people apply and they haven't kind of quite got it right. But they are worth looking at. They do take time to complete. I've done these for companies. It's about 4 or 5 days full-time work developing a bid up. But there are regular competitions as well that you want to keep an eye on. So these are worth looking at if you want to do something new. You've got a great idea, definitely look at these. So generally at any one time, there are about 15 to 20 competitions open. Most of them are very specific. Like there's one at the moment, future plastic packaging solutions. So there's another one about speed of recovery after a hip replacement. So a lot of them are specific. The Innovate UK Smart Grants, though, I mentioned the Smart Just, they are the open program. So they're open to any innovation, and they're open to a wide group of ideas and things going on. And they offer from 25 grand up to £2 million. I've given you that link there, where I will put it in the chat box, and I'm going to put all the links to the chat box. But when you get the slides, if you click on that link, that will tell you what competitions are open at the moment. It is worth having a look at. It's worth just keeping an eye on to see what's available, what's going on. Things I wish I'd have known before I'd written some of these grants. One is they are best suited for companies who have PAYE. If you're a startup manufacturer and you don't have that yet, you are limited to charging £22 per hour. You can't charge more than that. And you can only do 40 hours maximum a week at £22 an hour. You can partner with the university, and they can take up to 30% of whatever you're applying for. The great thing is with them is their costs are 100% covered by the grant. And it really helps your bid if you do work with the university as well. They do like that, and they like collaboration. You can in your bid include 20% your labor costs, because all of the costs you put in are meant to be around the innovation. So it's people working on the innovation. But then obviously you've got management costs, you've got admin. So you can include 20% of your labor costs. And you can, for a lot of bids, include subcontractors. You can pay them as well. And you can also cover things like materials, travel and subsistence, lab time, all of these other things. So there's plenty of things you can put in the grant. It's always about the innovation, though. It won't cover things like office rent, website design, things like that. It's stuff to do with the innovation. Okay, so moving on. I did mention earlier, fully funded support. So there's lots of fully funded support available. That's mainly from universities, and that's there to help you be more efficient, more competitive, and more profitable. And there's loads of it out there. For example, Aston University alone has 17 projects, fully funded support projects to help businesses. So there's lots of these projects out there. And these projects give you two flavors of support. Usually they'll give you some initial basic work, which could be 12 hours support. That could be research. That could be initial investigation, looking at your idea, or it could be workshops. You could go to workshops that help you move forward. Then if you've gone for that research, the initial investigation, you can then get 8 to 12 days of further support to develop your idea. To take your idea to the next level, you can get support. This is all fully funded, doesn't cost you anything. There isn't application forms. You just need a signature on something, very straightforward to get. So to give you two examples, this is a really nice program being run by Aston Business School to help manufacturers, engineering and tech businesses in the Black Country and Greater Birmingham Solihull LEPs to sell more, increase the price of the product, tie customers into long-term contracts, and grow within their current sector. That's a really nice program. It runs over 4 weeks. It's 2 hours a week. Companies on it have gone from £2 million to £5 million turnover in manufacturing. So that was AE Aerospace have done that. So it's a really good program to know about. That's a series of workshops run by Aston Business School. The other type of project, this again is from Aston University. This is like the Enabling Technologies project. And this is aimed at manufacturing, engineering and tech companies. And it's helping them to use things like artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality. Big one for manufacturers seeing is how do I use sensors? How do I monitor machinery better? How do I use 5G and big data? And that one's available to companies in the Greater Birmingham Solihull LEP and the Black Country LEP. That gives you two examples of the different things. As I said, there are lots and lots of these funded projects out there. And the big thing I do is connect people with the grants and the funded support that's right for them. Because this is the best way to put it all together. So first off, you want to set your destination. I'm here today. Here's where I want to get to. So you know where you're going, where you want to get to. The next step is you break it into steps. You might say, I can get from here to by doing these 5 things. I need to put these 5 things in place. You then look at what fully funded projects can I use to tick off those steps. How can I do that? Because the fully funded projects are usually very specific about what they can help you with. So in those 5 steps, you may well find 2 fully funded projects, which will cover 2 of those steps. So use them first. Then you look at the grants, because they tend to be wider what they can be used on. But remember, they're only match funded, so they're going to cost you some money. So you might find 2 steps that you can match fund by. So you only need to pay fully for 1 step. So you can get all the way across with a lot of funding. You've maximized the amount of money you've got. And then finally, if you're looking to do something longer, I'd recommend a knowledge transfer partnership, and I can explain more about that. I've not got time to cover that today, but that's where you get an academic working with you full time and you pay 1/3 of their salary and the university pay 2/3. If you want to find out more, let me know and I'll talk you through that. So I've covered the myths behind grants, the 3 different flavors of grants: innovation, job creation, Innovate UK, fully funded support, how to put it all together. So the big problem, as you might gather from all of this, is there's almost too much out there. And the thing is, nobody knows where it is and nobody knows how to match it up. So this is why we kind of developed the technology supply chain. It's all about connecting companies with all the things they need to create all those steps. So rather than getting one piece of help, we'll say, you're here, you want to get to here, we will help you find all the bits of help to get you all the way across. So we are a no-cost membership, and we have about 800 members at the moment, and we're for manufacturing, engineering, and tech companies. And we are a community. We meet on a regular basis. We do a Zoom call once a month. We partner with lots of people like Make UK and the MTC, amongst others. But we're about bringing people together, and it's really nice because people come to our events and say, everybody's really nice here. And it's a nice group, nice people who want to support each other moving forward. And what we do is give you a stepping stone approach to grow, innovate, and prosper using all those resources that are available, because there's plenty of resources available. For example, we're running a program at the moment where you can get a graduate volunteer to help your business for 6 months. And I have quite a few engineers who are helping quite a lot of small marketing companies in Birmingham and Coventry. So that might be something you're interested in. How do we help? We help you to find grants, access funded support, find new opportunities, make new connections, and ultimately our aim is to help you achieve your goals. So some key points, because these are questions I always get asked, is we help you with grants, but we're not bid writers. So for like the Innovate UK grants, we wouldn't write the bids for them. We do know people who do, and there's people who do that, but that's not what we do. We do not take a commission from the grants or fully funded support you receive. We don't get any money from that. A lot of people seem to think we do. No, that's not how we kind of cover our costs. We cover our costs through universities paying us for consultancy to help them achieve their targets. We do have some very generous patrons, and we do get grants ourselves. So that's how we fund ourselves. It's not taking a commission from your grants or your funded support. So what's your next steps? Well, what we found works best is if we have about half an hour Zoom meeting with you. And if you follow that link, you can book into my diary. What I do is find out about your business, and then I will tell you which grants and funded support probably suit you best. I can discuss that through with you. And usually out of them, we'd refer you to about 6 or 7 different things. The reason we do that is if I sent you all the information, all the grants and funded support, you'd get a bit lost. And in some cases, it's not easy to make the connection. It's far easier if I can find out a bit more about your business, what you're trying to do, and then guide you to the people you should talk to. And I'll do an introduction, and you can chat with them and find out if it's right for you. So 3 reasons to get involved with us. We help move your business forward using the grants and funding support available to you. We are free of charge. We cost you absolutely nothing. And we're a community interest company because we're all about giving back. So as close as you can get to a charity. So remember, next step is please book in, or you can contact me, and we can arrange to meet for 30 minutes, or please drop me an email and I will help you to find the grants and fully funded support that is right for you. And there are my details, and I think that's pretty much bang on 9:35, I believe, Chris. 9:05, sorry.
Brilliant, thank you, Richard. And there have been a couple of questions come through in the chat, but in essence of time, if you could follow up with those in the chat, that'd be great. I think you have covered a lot there, which is in terms of the questions, and actually really set the scene, of course, for why businesses need to get involved. But thank you very much, Richard. And if anyone wants to speak to Richard, of course, contact his details are on there. And of course, get in touch with Make UK if you want Richard's support. But moving forwards, we're also joined by ABGI this morning, who are Make UK's Advantages partners for both writing proposals for grant funding, but also maximising the use of innovation funding more broadly, and specifically for R&D tax credits as well. So Joe, if you wanted to very quickly share your screen.
Yeah, certainly, just 2 seconds, just gonna.
And so this morning from ABGI, we're joined by both the grant funding manager and Sandy, who's their director of partnerships at ABGI, who, as I say, are both experts in terms of grant funding, but also R&D tax credits as well. And they're very much who make UK use with our members for, and yourselves, for innovation funding and where to go and that sort of support. I know that you've already answered some of the questions in the chat as well, Sandy.
Joe, when you're doing your presentation, you can maybe touch on one chap. Dan asked about the impact of, sorry, it wasn't Dan, it was Roger, the impact of Brexit on grant funding and in particular ERDF. And Dan asked about the impact of group ownership on grant eligibility as well.
We're just having an issue with the sharing the screen at the moment. I don't know whether it's my permissions. Have you got the?
Yeah, I'm just going to. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Ah, there we go. So we'll go through 3 things today on the grant side. Our approach, how we work with the various grants, trying to understand as well what you want to achieve through those grants, and also how to get in contact with us as well. So we have a 5-step approach that works, we think, best to make sure that we firstly understand what it is you want to achieve with your project, and then to get to the end goal of having it funded, and then making sure during that project that we don't just leave you in the dark and we give you the maximum support possible. So the first step, I think the slides just disappeared, is launch and establishing projects. So this is essentially us going through like an introductory meeting to understand what it is you want to achieve with your projects, say from the cost and the scale and the scope of the project as well, if it would be eligible for whichever sort of grant funding body that's going to fit best. So that leads into the scoping. So this is where we do our sort of homework and we understand which particular grants are going to fit best to the project. So it could be that it's a capital expenditure project. So from the LEPs, or for our clients based in Scotland, the Scottish enterprise, Wales, it's the Welsh government, and then Invest Northern Ireland for those types of projects as well. Or if it's an innovation project, it's going through Innovate UK. Or if it's a much larger scale project closer to commercialization, and it's a genuine sort of game changing technology, then EU grants still are certainly available going forward as well. On to the third step is the application development. So this is where, sorry, I didn't mean to change the slide, but the application development is where we help clients write the application, the bid. So sometimes it can be with collaborative partners, whether it's universities, if it's other SMEs or large companies, we make sure that from all sides it's a coherent bid. So it's not just one company that's going to look like they're in charge, and the rest are just sort of tacked on to make it look like it's a eligible grant for certain ones that require collaboration. From the submission of the application, we help make sure that it's going to take away all that faff of uploading the application, because say with the Innovate Grants, it's a case of uploading all the finances, and if it's sort of left to the last minute on the deadline day, it's always a case of trying to get in before then, because the system may crash, and it's just trying to make sure that it's a nice easy process from your side. And then if the application is successful, that leads on to the post-award compliance and grant management. And this is where when it goes through the checks of the project startup, we make sure there's the right documentation in place. Any sort of queries that come through, we can help advise on those queries. And just make sure that it's not going to be a case where if you get a grant, it's then like, great, what do I do essentially? It's trying to make sure that we offer that support on that side as well. Sometimes applications will be unsuccessful. It could just be the volume of the number of applications. So we do support on the resubmission as well, because we've had clients miss out on a couple of marks. It's a bit unfair to kind of leave them in the dark and not help on that side. Next slide, please. So So what we try and offer is a competitive fee system, market fee system. So this is a mixture of an upfront fee and then a win fee percentage of the grant awarded. It depends on the grant that you're going for. Say for the Innovate grants, it's typically about £5,000 or so. For the European grants, what used to be the SME instrument or the EIC accelerator, it's a bit more on that side. So it's often a case-by-case basis. What we have as well is a good collection of technical consultants who work on the R&D tax credit side, but also in grants, and they've got experience project managing grant-funded projects, writing applications as well as myself, and also from a technical delivery point of view during those projects, helping companies achieve that as well. So what we aim to do is enhance the chances of success and minimise the risk. And again, it's trying to be as efficient as possible because, at the end of the day, you want to focus on your day-to-day activities. We don't want to sort of take away and, get you doing all the writing, because that's essentially what we're there for. So we focus on 3 types of funding. There's Innovate UK, which has already been sort of touched on, and it can really range from a different number of priorities, things like the ISFCF, the Industrial Challenge Strategies Challenge Fund, Eureka and Eurostars. There's all types of the SBRI as well. So we help companies on a range of different ones. Regional grants, it tends to be more sort of Scottish enterprise we sort of focus on because quite a good part of our client base is based in Scotland, but also the LEPs across England, we're always sort of keen to help on that side as well. And European grants, obviously one of the questions is whether this is still eligible and if it's affect ERDF. The UK is likely going to be an associated member, so similar to Norway, Switzerland, Iceland, countries that put some into the Horizon program, but obviously they can't get more than what they get. So if the UK puts in, say, I don't know, £1 billion over the year, then they can't get more than that through the grants, and obviously it stretches from all parts of those different areas. ERDF is a bit of a strange one because there's some things where the UK is going to sign up on for the Horizon program and also for European funding, but ERDF is going to be controlled by the UK government going forward. So it's likely that we're going to see some changes coming forward over the next few months. And the devolved governments, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, are being consulted on what they want from regional funding. So it's going to be interesting over the next few weeks. I believe it's the end of April that consultation is going to finish, and we'll likely see then going forward, what sort of priorities they're going to be on some of the regional funding going forward. Next slide, please. So this is just to get in contact with us. So we've just got some of my experience there, my contact details, and how we can best help you on achieving the grant funding. I'll pass you on to Sandy now on the R&D tax credits.
That's great. Thanks very much, Joe. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah, loud and clear, Sandy.
Yeah, brilliant. That's good, Chris. Thank you. Morning, everybody. Just wanted to take 5-10 minutes to give you a bit of background on other things. As Richard says at the start of his presentation this morning, there's lots of money out there to do lots of things. The problem is that most companies don't know, A, what funding's available, and B, how to get to it. So ABGI, next slide, Chris, sorry. Yeah, ABGI is an international consulting group. We help clients accelerate their innovation activities by identifying and securing appropriate forms of funding. We work across 20 countries. We have 200 specialists, and last year we managed £1.6 billion worth of incentives across those markets. Much more interestingly, in the UK, we have 6 offices, London, Cambridge, Cardiff, Birmingham, Manchester, Newcastle, and Edinburgh. We have 75 staff, and last year we helped clients realise £40 million worth of tax incentives in the UK. So that's who we are, that's what we do. Joe and Richard have already dealt with grant funding. What I really want to do is just take 5 minutes to explain how other types of funding can complement grant funding and can help companies put together successful or effective funding packages. And that's what we're going to look at now. So First thing is tax incentives itself. R&D tax relief is the biggest part of our business in the UK, and most people will know about R&D tax relief, or most people will tell you they know about it. One thing I should say is that R&D tax relief is available in the UK for companies who are seeking an advance in science or technology. In seeking that advance in science and technology, you have to be addressing technical uncertainties, and you need to use competent professionals in dealing with those uncertainties. If you're doing all of those three things, you will qualify for tax relief. If you're an SME in the UK, that will be up to 25% on every £1 you spend. So for every £1,000 you spend, you will receive £250 tax relief. If you're in a loss-making position, you can surrender your losses and receive up to 33p in the pound as cash credits back to the company. Another area of tax incentive that companies know less about in the UK is patent box. If you're in a fortunate enough position to have patented inventions, if you have exclusive licenses to other companies' patents, or if you have medicinal or botanical rights, you can apply for patent box, which gives you a preferential tax rate of 10% on all profits directly associated with the commercialization of a patent. That would include sales revenues of the patented invention, sales revenues of products incorporating the patented invention, licenses of the patent, royalties associated with licenses, and, if it's appropriate, fines for infringements on your patent. You have to have a patent granted in the UK to qualify for patent box, but you can apply for acceptance or admission into the patent box relief scheme while the patent is pending. The other area of tax relief that people should be aware of, and it's much more important now after the budget 2 weeks ago, is capital allowances. The new super enhancement, which Rishi Sunak talked about 2 weeks ago, will allow you to claim relief on 130% of your spend on plant and equipment. What does that mean? If you spend £10,000 on new plant and equipment from April, you will qualify for tax relief on £13,000, and that will yield £2,470 tax relief for your company. Even if you're in a loss-making position and aren't paying tax in that particular year, that tax relief can be carried forward into future years where you do have a taxable profit, and so it can be used to actually reduce future tax exposure as well. So 3 types of tax relief everybody should be aware of, and particularly given the focus going forward in terms of the adoption of new manufacturing technologies and digitization, the new super enhancement that was announced 2 weeks ago is a particular benefit for companies. Next slide, please, Chris. The other area that we deal with, and again, it's appropriate in particular circumstances, is commercial funding. So we work with a number of partners around the UK who have funds where they're appropriate, where grant funding and tax incentives don't cover the full bill, we have other options available to us. The first of these is cash advances. This is particularly appropriate to R&D tax relief and also to grants. So we do have a number of partners in the UK. If you have R&D tax relief, if you qualify for a cash credit, we have partners who can pay a cash advance on the tax credit if it's required. We also have a number of partners who will offer cash advances against letters of grant offer from Innovate UK and from European sources where it's appropriate. An increasing interest in IP secured loans. There are a number of companies in the current climate and in the current economy who don't have traditional assets in the form of buildings, plant and equipment that they can secure loans against. They may have limited value in their balance sheet. We have a number of partners who can look at a valuation on your intellectual property and will then secure a loan against the intellectual property. This is particularly appropriate for new technology businesses where generally all they have is intellectual property. They might have database rights, they may have design rights, or they may have a patent sitting as well. We also have one high street lender in the UK who offers software asset finance. Again, if you've developed a piece of software which is integral to your own business and may be of benefit to other businesses, we have one lender who will look at putting a valuation on that particular software asset and will make loans against that. And the third area that we work with partners on is recurring revenue secured loans. So again, if you have a SaaS business or if you have a subscription model attached to the business and there's regular monthly revenue coming into that business, we have two providers who will look at securing a loan against your recurring revenue asset. So that's the other areas alongside grant funding that we work with. If you want to have a conversation about either how we help you write a proposal for grant funding, or how we help you identify the most appropriate forms of funding and how to put an innovation funding package together for your business, that our contact details are there. Contact Joe or myself. Thanks, Richard.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sandy and Joe. And before we move to our third and final speaker from a member who both has successfully accessed grant funding, we'll talk through the kind of practitioners and business side of accessing it. I do want to very quickly run a short poll just to kind of get some feedback from those who've joined us this morning on grant funding specifically. The first question being about confidence, the second one being around have you successfully applied funding in the past, and then thirdly around the kind of biggest barrier for your business applying for grant funding. By no means an extensive list in terms of barriers, so if you don't see something on there that's the barrier for you, then please do pop it in the chat. We're really keen to hear some feedback this morning on members in this area. I won't leave the poll open for too much longer and conscious of time. There's only a handful of questions. I'll very quickly go through the results as well. And thank you, Richard, for answering some of the questions that have come through on the chat as well. Brilliant. So in terms of confidence, we're seeing the majority are either somewhat confident or somewhat unconfident, so very much in the middle ground. But not too many being very confident. Just nearly 2/3 of those on the call have successfully applied for grant funding in the past. And actually the biggest barrier for members is the time and capacity to apply. And we also see that many on the call would like some support from and hear from ABGI as well. But conscious of time, and we are joined by Phil from A&M EDM, who are a Make UK member who have successfully in the past applied for grant funding. And I know in terms of your background, Phil, a bit of a poacher turned gamekeeper with previous experience at the Black Country LEP, and we mentioned LEPs already this morning. So if I want to hand over to you, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chris. I'm going to leap straight into it. As Chris said, my background is in, for a long time ago, public-private sector partnership working, including the Black Country LEP. I've now gone to the other side on an SME with A&M EDM, who are a £6 million turnover precision engineering business in Smethwick on the sort of Birmingham Black Country border. Our customers are in automotive, aerospace, Formula One. We made parts for ventilators last year. Most of our work is covered by non-disclosure agreements, but we will make precision components and tooling in all types of metals. Richard gave if we move on to the next slide, Richard gave a great sort of overview of the complexity of the situation regarding grant funding. And what the position is now will be very different in a year's time because it's constantly changing. So the first sort of suggestion I've got is you've got to do your research, understand what the position is in your locality, because geography does matter. There are different emphasis, particularly for manufacturing. The West Midlands is pretty positive about manufacturing compared to some other parts of the country. There's a whole list here of potential providers, and there's many, many more that can be added to that. The one thing that I would say is that LEPs are strategic organisations, so they've created growth hubs as being sort of delivery arms with their local authority partners. And if we can move on to the next slide. This was a screen grab from the Black Country Growth Hub, and there's each one of these things you can then go into and find out more detail. I'd recommend that there are people within growth hubs and indeed some local authorities who still have what used to be called sort of business development or inward investment or business growth sort of officers. Talk to them. Talk to them or the growth hub and let them understand what you're looking for. Next slide, please. You've got to tell a project story. What do you want to do? If you don't know what you want to do, how are you going to convince anybody? Because you will have to write an application. Even if you get a consultant to work with you, the organisation, the business has to know what it wants to do. Whether it's buying a new piece of machinery to do, to enter a new market, a new process, a digital project, it doesn't matter. You've got to be able to tell that story. You've got to justify why you want a grant. Any sort of grant will require the business to put in the majority of funding, but it may be that little bit extra is just a stretch too far, and you won't be able to do it without some public sector assistance. But you've got to justify why that. You've also then got to move on to, what will it do to improve the business or to grow the business, and go into some specifics. Whether it's sales growth, whether it's a new market, will it create new jobs? Will it enhance productivity? And you're going to have to produce some sort of forecast, cash flow. Do all the, what's the time scale for implementation? What's the costs? What's the return going to be over this period? In effect, you're asking public money to invest in your business. So you've got to justify that. And my advice would be, you summarize this in 2 or 3 pages. And if you can't do that, then you're not ready to apply for a grant. Next slide, please. Understand the process. 3 years ago, we got a 50 grand grant towards a new CNC machine and digital measuring equipment that was for aerospace work. The application was 21 pages long, over 6,000 words. I had to write 1,000 words on the market for CNC machinery. It was ridiculous, completely unnecessary, absurd, but it's a sort of game, and that's, you've got to understand the rules of it. If that's, it's like doing an exam. If that's the question, you've got to answer it. But the internet's a wonderful resource, and you can find a lot of market sort of details, and it enables the officers who are approving or assessing the grant to tick the right boxes. But it was a waste of time. But that's where we were then. Next slide, please. Right, challenges. As the survey has just proved, capacity within the organisation is probably the critical one. You've also got to think, well, is the cost and the effort of getting this worth the benefit? The duration it will take from the start of the application process to actually getting the money, because it doesn't always appear when it's supposed to. In recent years, we've had a major problem with getting the actual money into our bank account from a local authority, that we had to keep chasing them for up to 6 months. It was ridiculous, but what can we do? It got stuck between processes. So bureaucracy, hasn't gone away. Also, you have to provide regular reports. On one project recently, I had to do an end of project sort of overview, and we've got to keep digital records till 2025. So, you know, it's unlikely there'll be an audit, but this was European funding. There may be an audit, and you've got to have those records if required. Next slide, please. So to conclude, grants and funding are opportunities to accelerate growth. They are open for all, even though many companies who are great companies just don't know about them, or the process scares them, or they've had a bad experience in the past. So they just think it's not for me. If you do it and you're successful, it creates an opportunity for a really positive profile for the company. We've used getting new machines from grants as examples. We'll get somebody in to commission them. We had Charlotte Horrobin from Make UK to commission some new wire eroders. We had Andy Street a couple of years ago, the Mayor of the West Midlands. And then you've got a story for media, for trade media, for local papers, etc. In my experience, there isn't a magic formula at all. It's about telling your story and being confident and knowing exactly what you want to do and what difference it will make for your company. Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much, Phil, and a very quick but insightful summary of somebody who's actually been through this process and some of the challenges of the big opportunities we've been through this morning. We have run over by 1 or 2 minutes, so I would like to say if you have any questions or looking for any more support from a range of our speakers this morning, please don't hesitate to get in touch. We will share a recording of this session and the slideshows presented. But other than that, thank you very much for joining us this morning and have a fantastic morning.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Chris.
Chris. Thanks, everybody. Great to be here today.
Cheers. Thank
Very
you.
much.
Great day.
Great. Thanks a lot.